Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, and we're going to talk a lot about identity and having that identity created by external factors. So it's so easy to get stuck in negativity. Maybe you planned a path, it didn't go as you wanted. In Betsy's case, maybe you had a car accident that changed what you were going to do for a living, or maybe you live in pain, something happened and you can't do what you thought you were going to do. And you live in a world of everything happening to you. Everything's falling down. The shoes are dropping. You can't figure out how to get under it. And you go into that spiral down. How do you get out of that? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what that does to your identity. We're going to talk to what that does to your perspective on life and how to shift and how she shifted in now seeing the positive and gratitude things in life that have now opened up doors for her to do what she really wants to do. So, a little bit about Dr. Betsy. She is a renowned premier expert in menopause and andropause. She's a best-selling author, entrepreneur, spokesperson, and innovative specialist in pelvic medicine. She was the first female to achieve the board certification in urogynecology. She's also the founder of the International Pause Institute, which is giving those in perimenopause, menopause, and andropause their life, energy, and sanity back. She is the CEO of the Pelvic Floor Store. She is also a captivating speaker and respected educator. She infuses humor and warmth into the conversation. I think you'll truly enjoy hearing her speak. She is very funny, and she is even most recently the producer of a menopause rock album. Like, fun, right? Menopause should not be us wasting away. It should be us enjoying life. It's the best time in our life. Betsy believes this. I believe this. So without further ado, here is Dr. Betsy Greenleaf. Hi, Dr. Betsy. Thanks for coming.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Dr. Tricia. This is going to be fun.
This is always fun. We always have a good time together. It's interesting because when people from the outside see people such as you, someone that's so vibrant, someone that's out there doing all these things, they just assume that your life is great. And we live in a world of a lot of negativity. It's like, oh, this is happening to us. Oh, this happened to us. This was our plan. And then this happened and my life was ruined. And they live in a negativity circle all the time where nothing is great. Yeah. And I find the majority of the people that I meet live in that space. And you're no stranger to this space.
Oh yeah, I lived there for many years.
Yeah, and it's not a place of happiness. So I really want to see if today we can really talk about this and about your transformation from moving into a negative space to a positive space. Because I think the thought of it when you're in that low is like, I can't just make things better. I can't think my way out of this. I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. Things just keep happening. And you had a major thing where you go to school, you become a doctor, you become a surgeon, right? And you're practicing, you're living this life that you've always wanted to do, and you're whatever. And then all of a sudden, it's taken away from you.
Yeah.
And this started a large pattern of negativity and self-loathing and more problems. So let's talk about that. What happened? Where were you and what happened that started this huge chain of events?
So I was driving like I always do to work one day, and next thing you know, I heard this big crash. So I heard it before I even realized what was going on. And then it was like, oh shit, my car just got hit. It took me a minute to realize what happened, and I was like, and I wasn't going that fast. So it turns out some guy couldn't get to Walmart quick enough. And he came across 3 lanes of traffic. It's always the Walmart people. They say, they made that joke online about the people at Walmart. But he couldn't get there fast enough. Came across 3 lanes of traffic right into the back end of my car. And I was actually driving to the hospital to go perform surgery.
Mhm.
And I remember I just sitting there shocked because you don't know what happened. Like it was the sound that I heard first. I didn't feel anything at that point in time because your sympathetic nervous system kicks in. So you're
Yeah.
like all on adrenaline. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm just like, what the F just happened? And yeah, I didn't even realize. And so I knew enough to go to the hospital because I was like, oh, we weren't going that fast. It was like 30 miles an hour. Um, but this is why I tell people, even if you're a little fender bender, you need to get checked out because I went to the hospital, I got looked over, and even then they were just like, oh, you're fine, go home. So, and of course, I had the normal little aches and pains, and I went to go see my chiropractor, and he said, since you've been in a car accident, let's go get a x-ray or let's go get an MRI of your neck and see what's going on. And I had herniated 2 discs in my neck. Which I didn't realize were going to be so much of a problem because I was like, a lot of us are walking around with herniated discs. It's part of just being human and being upright for so many years. And so even then I put that off. And then, fast forward, I had this like dizzy episode like a month later. And it was during this time that when they read the MRI, they told me, oh, by the way, you've had a stroke at some point in your life. And I went, what? Like, that's got to be wrong. And then it was, when I had the dizzy episode, I was like, oh my God, am I having another stroke? Like, what does this mean?
Right.
Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what's happening with my career? And during the dizzy episode, I ended up going back to the hospital and they x-rayed and did all of these things to my head, which they didn't do the first time around. And they're like, you have a skull fracture. And I was like, yeah, I don't
From the
remember.
accident.
Yeah, I don't have any recollection of hitting my head. I didn't have any recollection of hitting my head. I wasn't sore. I wasn't any, but like there was no other time in my life because they were like, well, because it was a whole month later, they're like, it's not an acute injury, meaning it didn't happen like that day.
Yeah.
But they're like, we don't know when this happened. And
Wow.
so, this led down, you go to I always joke, you go to the doctor, and as doctors, we find things. And so it was one thing that led to another. So it was like, you've had a stroke, you have a skull fracture, you have this herniated disc.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, now what? And then I had to go see cardiologists. And then I had to go get like special tests on my heart to feel like, why do I have a hole in my brain? Because
Right.
it was a hole that was showing up on my brain that nobody knew. Like, is this a stroke? What is this hole? And so did it have anything to do with the car accident? And then it was like, oh wait, you have a hole in your heart, and you were born with a hole in your heart, and now here I am, like 40 something years later, finding out I have a hole in my heart, a hole in my brain, a skull fracture, a herniated disc, and
Wow.
it becomes very overwhelming. And after many many months of testing and going back to the neck, the orthopedic doctor is like, you need to have neck surgery. And unfortunately, being a doctor, I know too much. So I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm not going to have surgery because not all surgeries go perfectly. And if you mess up surgery, I'm going to either dead or paralyzed. So I'm going to do this through natural means. I'm going to do like the chiropractic stuff. I'm going to do the anti-inflammatory stuff. And so I actually put off having neck surgery for a full year. Turns out the hole in the heart thing was just kind of like, all right, it was fine, got that worked up, and they're like, yeah, it's so small, we don't need to do anything. The hole in the brain, to this day, nobody knows if it was something I was born with, if I had a stroke at some point. Nobody knows. It's showing up on tests, but nobody's worried about it. So I was like, okay, got rid of all those things, but I still had the herniated disc, and I was going through like all these amazing, like everything you could think of, from like stem cell injections to like
All the things. All
everything
the
but
things that perfectionists do.
yeah, but surgery. And then one day I come to work and I go to lift up my coffee mug and I can't lift it off the desk. Like this was probably almost a year and 4 months later I had put this
Wow.
off, and now I could not lift a coffee mug off my desk. And it was just, that seemed like it happened overnight. So now I go back to the orthopedic doctor and they're like, oh, well, guess what? Now this, you put off this neck surgery for your herniated disc that's been compressing your nerve in your neck. Now you've had nerve damage. And so now you've affected all the nerves going down your right arm. And so unfortunately, being a right-handed surgeon, that became a problem because I had to give up surgery. And then I was like, okay, fine, let's do the neck surgery. So they went in through the front of my neck, removed the disc, replaced it with artificial discs, which, so I'm part bionic woman now. Yeah, and the surgery went very well. However, they say it can take up to 2 years for the nerves to regenerate and to gain full use of the hand back. Well, now we are 6 years later and I never gave full use of the hand. So, having trained all of those years to become a surgeon and to become the first board certified female urogynecologist in the country, and now going through the identity crisis of you can't do what you just trained your whole life to do because you can't use your right hand. That definitely led to some significant, like, who am I? What do I do?
Yeah,
So,
and I think identity is something that a lot of us struggle with. It's like I talk to guests and I get to hear everyone's amazing stories, which is great, but it's like we're young and we model what we're taught to model, right? Our parents are there, they said a certain thing, our environment, are you supposed to be really studious? Are you supposed to go with the flow? Like we learn all these habits in childhood and then we start making decisions, right? When we go off to college and we decide what success means to us, even though we have no idea what it is. We just define what that is, and we've put our identity on something like, okay, I finally made a choice. What am I going to be today? And you jump into it, and then it fails.
yeah.
Or perceived fails, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, and then you're like, well, who the heck am I? I know that happened when I lost my mom. I didn't realize how much my identity was attached to my mom. Until she was gone. And then I was like, wait a minute. What am I supposed to do with my day? I don't understand. Like, I don't have mom to call. I don't get it. Right. And I think there's so many people that go through this, a major accident, a major life tragedy, some sort of grief. Maybe they lose a job that they've worked really hard for. And they're just sitting there in limbo saying, well, who the heck am I? And I think, and I'd love for you to expand on this, is that when we're in that space of who am I, and we've attached our identity to something and it's gone, we tend to scramble and look for other people to tell us who we are in that moment.
Oh,
We
yeah.
say, okay, we don't know, so we're going to turn to social media and see who I'm supposed to be. I'm going to compare myself to someone next to me because I'm supposed to be that. And we start to take on identities of what other people think we are, when in reality, who we already are who we are. And I think this is a really tough thing that people struggle with. So do you have some insight on how that felt and how that process has been going for you? Because I still think we are always seeking who we are.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
So, it was interesting because prior to the accident, I never walked around saying I was a doctor. I never walked around saying I was a surgeon because my view of people that did do things like that were that they were very pretentious.
Yeah.
So I actually was almost embarrassed in the past about being a doctor and a surgeon. And now you have that taken away from, although I'm still a doctor, but
Yeah.
there was this perception that it was being taken away from me. I almost felt like I needed to tell everybody I met, like, I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon, I'm a doctor, I'm a surgeon, because it was
like an overcompensation,
yeah,
right?
It was crazy. But like, I think the other process, it was, well, like, because it becomes your identity, it's like, who am I? And then you almost get stuck in this, you're not the person you thought you were. And so it can easily get translated that then I am nothing. And when there are so many options of something you can be, and there's so many options of where you can take that education and pivot and do something else. But at the time, and for many years, it was like, well, I'm not a surgeon anymore, so therefore I am nothing. And, a dear friend of ours, Dr. Joan Rosenberg, calls that bad emotional math. because one thing doesn't equal the other thing. But we do that in our brains. Same thing, like I started to look at things very negatively. And so it must be you become hyper aware of every little thing that goes bad during the day. And guess what? Nothing goes perfect in anybody's day. So I would come home from wherever I was, or sometimes it was just being home all day by myself. And my husband would be like, "How was your day?" And I'm like, "Today was the worst day of my life." You know, and after hearing that every single day, he said to me, "Maybe it was just a day." He's like, "Maybe you need to like reset your thermostat, which what is the worst day of your life and what is just a day."
I love the reset your thermostat because it's we're like, this is a bad day. So and so complained and this and that. And then when you really look in the big picture, I got up out of bed. I showered by myself. I put my makeup on. I was able to feed myself. I was able to drive myself to wherever. I said hello to my children. I was able to, maybe help someone that day. I was, and then I got home safely. I didn't have an accident where I lost the use of my body. I made it to where I needed to go. Like, is it really that bad of a day? But when you're in that moment, everything, and you attract that energy of more crap coming at you. So you're in this negativity space, right? Every single day. So then what started happening? Like, did things just start getting worse and worse and worse because you were just putting out that negativity?
Yeah, and I think it's like, I almost kind of, when I explain it to people, it's like, you think about our brains are being bombarded all the time with information, and it's what we choose to focus on. So let's say you're in Times Square and you're like walking down the street and you have like an eating disorder, right? You're going to focus on every restaurant that's there and you're going to miss seeing everything else. If you're like an alcoholic, you're going to see every bar that's in Times Square, but you're not going to see anything else. So, I mean, I know that this now, but at the time I didn't. It was just like, oh, look, this didn't go right, or I was late, or like, somebody cut me up. It was like every little thing, I burnt my, my breakfast or something, it was like, this is the worst day ever. And the funny thing is, I think the biggest turning point was, actually, let me go back. So where I was looking for answers is I started getting introduced to all these different like networking groups and masterminds. And though there's a lot of value in masterminds, I was putting my belief that they were going to tell me who I was, and that was going to be make my life perfect, or I was going to
they were going to fix you.
Yeah, or I was going to pay for some training, and this was going to be the thing that was going to fix my life. And after like probably thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of trainings and masterminds and groups, not that I didn't get anything from them, but I realized nobody can tell me. The answers, like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, the answers are in you. You just got to change your perspective. And I think Can
you say that again?
Yeah. So, like I said, like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, we should have learned. Like, that movie's been out forever. Like, that is the big message, is that the answers are in you all the time. So nobody, the wizard's not getting get you where you need to be. Nobody else is getting you. It's you, And
that is such a powerful statement that a lot of people glaze over. That's why I wanted you to repeat it, because it's so true. The only person who knows what you want is you. The only person who knows how you truly feel about getting there is you. The only person who can change your vision or set your goals is you. Now, you can reach out and set a vision and reach out to a professional to say, I'm trying to accomplish X, Y, Z. What are some great strategies to get there? But they can't tell you where to go. They don't have that ability. You are the only single person. And if anyone's listening to anything here, one of the most valuable parts of this interview with Dr. Betsy is that she was able to shift this negativity view into a view that allowed her to reconfirm her identity and her authenticity. And from the outside, if any of you follow Dr. Betsy, you would say, wow, she's totally authentic because she's out there talking about vaginas and this and that, and she's making you laugh, and that's great. And I can say, from an entertainment perspective, I grew up in entertainment. We have a lot of similarities here, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I learned how to entertain people. Yeah. So, I can get out there and I can look happy and I can look like everything is going great and I can tell you what needs to be said. But is that authentic? Yeah. Right? Where is that line? Where does it shift between the entertainer and the authenticity? And you've had to make this shift. All of us have had to make this shift. Yeah. I had to make this shift years ago. I was like, this is it. Like, if I don't come out as me and stop letting other people tell me who I am, my life is going to be miserable.
Yeah.
Then
Oh,
life
yeah.
is happening to us instead of for us, right?
And I think the sooner that you can understand that concept, the better life gets. Like,
100%. It's
yeah.
like when you buy that car, you know, and you don't see that car anywhere. Let's say you buy a new BMW. You don't see it anywhere.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, as soon as you buy it, every single freaking person has the same car. So
Exactly.
what a great question. And I wonder, I'm sure you asked yourself this, but it's like, what do I want to attract in my life?
Yeah.
What do I want? And then having to take a really, really strong look at, do I want this in my life? So what are the things that you've had to let go of since making this transition that you thought you never could let go of, or you felt like you needed, and now you realize you really didn't?
You know what? I'm going to explain an exercise that I did that I think was so transformative. And it's one of those things where I explain it. I want people to do it. But if I explain it, it's going to kind of ruin the punchline. But maybe you can, because you guys you'll understand what it's about. But I was doing some training with Michael Burnoff. And he basically gave us a giant blank piece of paper. And he said, okay, write down everything that has happened in your life from the moment you were born until now.
Oh my gosh, my list would be like 20 pages long.
So, like, you know, he gave us like an hour or so to do it. And I started writing, and I started writing, and I started writing, and I started writing. And then you went with a partner and you looked at your list. And the partner that was reading my list, she goes, "Are you married?" And I said, "Yes." She's like, "It's not on your list." She's like, "Do you have kids?" I said, "Yeah." She's like, "It's not on your list." So then I looked at my list, and everything I wrote on my list was everything that was bad that happened in my life. Like, I was bullied in 6th grade. I was, you know, in a freak roller coaster accident in high school.
Oh, I definitely want to hear about that during this hour. I'm coming back to that one, but yes, okay.
You know, I was bullied in high school, you know, like left college, my first college early. Like, I was in a house fire where my roommate died. Like, it was every single thing. And I kind of went, oh shit, instead of living my life, I've been focusing too much on the bad things. There was not one good thing on my list. And it really kind of pointed out, like, oh my God, look what I've been focusing on. And so that was the big turning point. And then really kind of getting actually into more of a gratitude practice, which I thought was kind of corny when I first heard about it. And like, I heard all these, you know, amazing, you know, personal development speakers are like, we practice gratitude. We write down things every day that we're grateful for. And I'm like,
I know that's me. I tell people to do that, and they look at me like, okay, Pingel, that's not going to help. So tell them how it helps.
I thought it was so corny. I'm like, this is dumb, but I was like, what? It's not going to hurt. And look, I see these other people are successful, so it's worked. Something's worked for them. So I started doing it, and I kind of felt this shift. Like, my focus got different. I didn't see the bad things that happened in life anymore. And if I did, they weren't bad. Like, I didn't see them as bad anymore. It was just life. It was just like, okay, that's the shit that happens in life. But look at all the good things. I woke up. I had a nice breakfast. Like, even the simple things. I woke up. I put my clothes on, you know. And then the successes, when they happen, seem even more big. Because before, I would always, like, somebody be like, congratulations, you won this thing, or congratulations, you got nominated for this thing, and I'd be like, ugh, whatever. Like, I didn't look at it as, like, that big of a deal, because I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And, you know, that's something I heard also from Joan Rosenberg. I got to give her credit. She's like, the shoe always drops. She's like, that's just life. It's just, how do we deal with life, and what do we focus on? So, yeah.
And is it really a drop? Yeah. I don't know. Or is it an opportunity? I know you know this. You know, we grow out of being uncomfortable and doing things that aren't part of our comfort. And we learn this comfort through these patterns, and they're all in our subconscious, right? And we have to learn how to reprogram that. And I have found personally that gratitude practice has been a huge game changer for me. And that really hit home when my mom died. And she couldn't go to the bathroom by herself. And there was nothing she could do by herself. And the fact that she woke up every day was her blessing.
Yeah.
Because she was dying, and she did die, and she knew she was dying, right? So if you knew you were dying, I've asked people, like, if you knew you were dying, but you didn't know exactly when, It could be tomorrow. It could be 2 weeks from now. It could be it could be 4 years from now, 40 years. You don't know, but you're dying. Would you handle your day any differently when you woke up? Would you be more grateful for waking up? Would
Yeah.
you, like, if we looked at life more as a journey and a story, I actually had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Sam Horn this week. That interview will come out soon. And she said, it's never too late to write your own story or to change your chapter. And I thought that was so brilliant because she was 100% right. We can change our chapters.
Yeah.
So you had all these things falling at you. We're going to come back to the roller coaster, I promise. But you had all these things happening, things were negative, and you made this shift. So did your life and career and what you chose to do at that point change? Like the things that you never thought you could do all of a sudden started happening?
Yeah.
Did you notice that big shift?
It was crazy. Like, I started noticing I was getting more invitations to come speak. I was getting more business invitations. There were more business opportunities that came in. There was more opportunities to meet people that I never thought I would ever meet in my life. There was, and actually there was more time to spend with my family, which I hadn't done in the past because now I appreciated them because I put way too much focus and energy on my career before. And so like everything started to seem like it was clicking. And I was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. It still happens. It still happens all the time. Like, I just got asked to go do a documentary down in Costa Rica, like, next month. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, it just, I feel like I'm starting to just attract more things into my life. So, yeah.
And that's how it works, right? Once you can get over that hump. So,
Yeah.
okay, tell people, what roller coaster were you on? Where were you? And what happened? Because first of all, I love roller coasters. And when I've gotten older, my frustration has been that I can't handle the really extreme ones anymore. I don't know why. I don't know if it's in my inner ear. I don't know. I can go to Disneyland. I can do those ones, no problem, and I love them. But if I go to Six Flags, I can do one, and that's it, and I'm out for the day. So what happened on a roller coaster?
Yeah, so it was in high school, and I was there with a church group, and we were at Dorney Park in Allentown. I think that's Allentown, Pennsylvania, and they had this roller coaster. It was called the Flying Dutchman. It was an old wood roller coaster. It does not exist anymore, and partially because of what happened. But I remember, there was 4 people to a cart, and there was 5 of us. So my friends went ahead, and I was like, I'll just get in with somebody from who's behind me. So I get in, and it was a couple of younger kids. And before we even got buckled in, we got hit from behind, and it sent us going. And, oh, there we go. The camera did a weird thing. The camera got freaked out, too. And it sent us going. And in my mind, when it happened, I wasn't thinking anything. I was just like, oh, we'll probably roll to a stop. But roller coasters are not built to roll to stops. So, and we weren't strapped in. And if we had kept going, there was one part in the roller coaster where we would have gone upside down. So, but just there was this rolling hill. And then as it's bringing you up the giant hill before the drop, that's when they stopped us. And then we got stuck up there for 2 hours while they were trying to figure out how to get us down. And then eventually they sent out a rescue crew and they got us out of the cart and we had to walk down the side. But we had to walk down on this very small, plank down the side from I don't know how many feet up. And one of the rescuers says to me, I really like your shoes. And like an idiot, I looked down to see what shoes I was wearing and I saw how high I was off the ground and I got really dizzy. And for many years afterwards, I was scared of heights, to the point where I couldn't get up on a ladder.
Were you able to get over that?
I was able to finally get over that. But but for a long time, it was very difficult. So, but I look at that now and it's a funny story, but for many years it was I almost died was the story, where really the story is now it's oh, look at this funny story that I survived and I was fine and everybody was fine. But for many years it was oh my god, this is a terrible story, I almost died, so it also shows you how you focus on things.
That's a great point. And I was going to ask you if you felt even prior to some of your more recent transformations in how you look at life, if you lived in a lot of fear, fear
Yeah.
of heights, fear
Yeah.
of this. And, fear has a very low frequency, and it serves us well if there's truly an emergency. But let's be honest. How many true emergencies do we have in our lives, like life-threatening emergencies? Like, in general, most of the stuff that we stress out about or we worry about or we're scared of are really not that life-threatening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So did you grow up, or were you raised like kind of like I was, where it was like fear of things? Like, if you aren't successful, you're going to lose all your money. If you don't have a stable job, you're not going to make it. Or like, if you don't follow the rules of everyone else, you're not going to succeed. Like, were you raised in that type of environment as well?
Um, yes and no, but the one that comes to my head more is, I'm laughing, I'm going to throw my mom under the bus here. If you don't unplug the toaster and the coffee machine before you leave the house every single time, the house is going to burn down.
And your house did burn down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how and your house burned down. So did you lose everything in this fire?
Yeah, so that was when I was a resident, and unfortunately, I lost my roommate in the house fire. She died from smoke inhalation. I was able to get out. To this day, we don't know what caused the fire. It was in a condo community. The condo community tore down the building before they could do a full fire investigation, and so there's some fishiness behind that, because there was a history of fires in this condo community before and after our fire. So there's this underlying thought there might have been some faulty wiring involved in the building of this place, but there was no way to ever prove it. So yeah.
That's a tough one. And
Yeah.
it kind of comes down to material things and how we strive for material things. Like, people say, oh, I can't invest in my health, but they have an iPhone and some new Nikes, right? I don't have anything, but they have a house and they have a couch and they have a toaster, right? That they could technically blow up their house with. And it isn't until you lose all those, quote, possessions that you start to have gratitude for the new blender you bought.
Yeah.
Or the new toaster you have, or the new rug that you put under the couch that maybe before you just walked on and kept saying, I don't have anything. I think, Betsy, it's so interesting, just as your friend and as someone who's interviewing you, looking back on how these things had to happen to you.
Yeah.
For you to really understand how much you have, like, to give to people, and how much you have, and why you were put on this earth, right? The world has given you these to knock you down, to make you say that you are good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to say you're a doctor. You don't have to do what you thought you were going to do. You can literally show up as Betsy, and the world is going to support you through that by just being Betsy. Like, it's such a beautiful story, and I hope you recognize that as you
Yeah.
work.
I do now. I don't think I would have. I think I unfortunately had to have a couple hits before it was like, oh, now I get it.
So now, are you doing something totally different with your career, or where are you at now?
Yeah, so now I'm actually, so I thought I was done with clinical medicine, but actually, I never thought I would go back into clinical medicine. And it's funny just how the world works. And in going back to the social media and all the messages that are out there in social media, I got sick and tired of hearing people talking about aging and menopause in particular, and not be qualified to talk about it. And like, we know that there's these influencers that have no experience, no knowledge, no training in this, yet their voices are being heard. And it kind of finally got to me. And I was speaking at a conference, and somebody asked a question about menopause, and I kind of snapped. And I don't know I still haven't figured out if I've come to my senses or if I've completely lost my mind. But I just blurted out, and I had no plan of this before, but I just blurted out, I'm opening a menopause clinic. And after it came out, I was like, why did I say that? And then it was so well received that I was like, oh my God, like that came from some cosmic place that came out on its own without me thinking. And then I realized, you know what, I still have a lot to give. And even if it's not surgery, there's so much more, and it's a needed topic, and there's so many people that need to do it. and need support in that area. So I'm in the process of not opening just a menopause, but andropause. So this is for men and women over the age of 40 that are starting to go through some hormonal changes and aging changes, and really supporting their lives. Because the other thing I find, especially on social media, is there's just too many negative messages out there. And there's, especially surrounding menopause, is this idea that like, oh, your life is over now that you've gone through menopause.
I mean, I'll be 50 next year, and I'm sorry, but my life is just beginning.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't get that message. I just don't. And I've talked to so many women
Yeah.
that are like, nobody has help for me. There's no resources for women going through menopause. And here's the thing, guys and girls, all of us will go through this. We don't have a choice. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was like a picture of the Golden Girls, right?
Yeah.
They were 50 when the Golden Girls, they were like
I
in their
can't
50s,
believe how
and they
old they
look
look.
like they're like 90. Like, I'm like, do I look like I'm 90?
No.
Like, I don't think so,
No.
But I do agree with you, and especially like kind of going into the modeling world and the entertainment world, which I know you've been in as well. Having this idea of what we're supposed to look like or what we're supposed to be, and these influencers going out there and saying, look at me, I lost all this weight. Look at me, I'm over 50 and I'm, the weight I was when I was 20. Yet they're doing it with things that are unhealthy,
Yes.
that are not sustainable. We're not seeing the emotional and mental decline that comes from always focusing on weight as a metric, which I'm 100% like focusing on weight as a metric is something that is really hard for me to do.
Yeah.
And I have, and granted, that's a struggle for me when I speak to people that are very focused on weight, because having to be so focused on my weight as a child,
Yeah.
and a teen, and a model,
Yeah.
and being so focused on my size and not on the health of my body, and knowing how much more healthier I am now when I'm 30 pounds heavier than I was back then.
Yeah.
And I look better now than I did back then. You're right. There's so much, I guess I'd use the words misinformation. There's so much misinformation about what is healthy from people that don't have the training, when there's so many of us out there that do have the training and also are influencers in our own right.
Yeah.
And so following the right person, I'm really glad you're doing that, because menopause is an issue. Andropause is an issue.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly underserved.
Exactly. I think, and for people who don't know what andropause is men go through the same changes starting in their 40s. Their testosterone starts to decline, and nobody's really talking about that. So, like, the poor men are kind of getting overlooked, though. Menopause is needed to be talked about, but I also feel like there's a lot of companies and products and devices that are being developed that kind of perpetuate this negative message surrounding these times of life, because pain sells. And so, so that's the other thing, is I want to be like, okay, we got to look at the messages, and it's an enlightened period of time. And in fact, this is actually kind of funny. It started off as a joke amongst our friends, and we were talking about how the music industry is geared towards these young, sexy, like, men and women, and that, like, by the time you reach middle age, the music isn't really geared towards us. So as a joke, but I actually turned out to be a really fun project, I wrote and produced a menopause empowerment album that's out. You can find it on Apple or Spotify or wherever.
Great.
It's called Menopause Memo, and it's all music about, like, hey, this is like the best time of our lives. Like, this is like our empowering time, and like, yay for us. So.
It is. And the negative messaging is interesting, because you watch TV and it's like, oh, you have ED, just call this number and we'll send you Viagra. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What's your medical history? And I actually had somebody call, and they don't even like do a screening.
No,
They
it's
just
here's your
give you the
prescription.
med. And
It's
then they're
scary.
like, oh, you feel depressed? Here's your Lexapro through the phone. We'll never have to meet you. You can just have it. But I mean, that's a beautiful business model,
Yeah.
because they'll keep you in it forever.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're not getting down to really what's causing the problem that we could fix.
That we can 100% fix. And it's also with men, the other thing that I see is they just start injecting with testosterone, and they don't pay attention to how it can turn into estrogen. They don't pay attention to their stress levels and how their stress levels can change the way that testosterone is used.
Yeah.
And then testosterone gets a bad rap for being,
Yep.
oh, it caused cancer. Oh, it causes prostate issues. Oh, it caused this or that. When it wasn't the testosterone, it was the practitioner that used it wrong.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great point. And I know this show is about what are you modeling? What is the development? But my listeners are all in this category, right? You guys are all experiencing this. And this moment where you feel doubt, this moment where you feel, I don't know if I can do it, you're stuck in your life, could be a combination of both. Number one, having to change this negativity to a positive message and really owning your own. And then number two, really looking at what is going on inside the body and can you support it in a way that allows your mindset to shift.
Yeah.
Because it's real easy to get negative Nancy when you feel awful.
You know,
Right?
and it's funny. I have a funny story that I think I shared with you, but like having been in the modeling industry for you, I just recently met Helena Christensen, which I totally geeked out fangirled on her, and it was so embarrassed, like literally fangirl to the point I started crying, and I was like, I never understood before why people cry when they meet someone famous, but when I was in high school, I had wanted to model, and she was one of the big models at that time, and so meeting her in person, I told her how, that I had wanted to model at that time and went to a couple different agencies and was basically told in the 1980s that I was too short because I'm 5'5", and you needed to be like at least
You had to be almost 5'10". I know when I applied or when I was modeling in, the 80s and 90s, you couldn't even get in the door if you were less than 5'9". And to be honest, if you were 5'9", you had to be really unique looking. Like you had to have something very special. It was actually on the website, like do not submit unless you're over unless you're over 5'9" and a certain size. Like it was that specific at the time for sure. It's not anymore though. Right?
Yeah, and so I remember, like, I'm telling her this story, and she's like, well, what'd you do? And I was like, well, I gave up, and I'm like, I ended up going to medical school and whatever. And then she looks at me, and she goes, why did you give up? She's like, Kate Moss is short. She's like, why did you give up? And in that instance, I went, holy shit, how many, I hope I can curse, sorry, I'm from New Jersey. Okay. I go, how many times in my life have I been told no and just accepted that as an answer?
Very
good
I think point.
That was a big turning point too, because it was like, oh my God, there's probably tons of times I could get and be like, somebody told me no, and I'm like, okay. Instead of like, wait a minute, why didn't I challenge that, or why didn't I change that idea? And so,
well, I think it's going back to letting other people determine who you are.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. I mean, I was in the agencies and I was working, but I would walk in and I'd put on an outfit and they're like, yeah, you don't look good in that. You're out. And I would be like, oh, okay. And I'd leave thinking, oh my God, I need to get better because I don't look good enough for them. I didn't look good enough for, Nordstrom's that day or, whatever. And it is a mindset shift because it's very easy to take that external comment and turn it internally to you not being good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is an innate thing programmed in us. It is. And it's something that we all need to start to recognize. And to be honest, we all need to talk about it. Because if we're talking about it, we realize that we're not alone. There is communities out there. We are all there to lift each other up. I love nothing more than to remind people how much they're worth. Mm. Because if I can see someone go, oh, yeah, I am worth it. That just made my day. Yeah. All the better. So if we have communities where we come together and we start talking about these things that we find are inferior about ourselves, we don't like our butt, we don't like our hips, we don't like our wrinkles, we don't like our hair, we don't fit in these pants that, to be honest, who cares? Like, find something that fits your body well, own it, and walk out. I got rid of a ton of my clothes when I was a size 0. And I remember thinking, why am I getting rid of these? These are like designers. But honestly, if I'm a healthy woman, if I'm a size 0, I'm dying.
Yeah.
I have cancer. And if I have cancer, I'm not going to want to wear the gown. So I you know what I mean? It's like you kind of have to look at it in perspective of like, who am I now that I'm going into my 50s? Who am I? What do I love to do? And then when someone says no, if you're truly passionate about it and it's something you love, to be able to say, no, I'm going to do that. But thank you for your opinion.
Yeah. And it's funny because 40-something years later, I did sign with an agency. So it was like, We're like, okay, bucket list, that's done. But the other thing when you're talking about like with the like things that we notice about ourselves that we're like, oh, I don't like this. It's so funny because we're the only ones who notice it.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I was just, eating lunch with a friend yesterday, and she just turned 50, and she was like, "Oh, she's like, I hate this thing under my neck," and she's like, "I'm looking into like investing in a facelift and a neck lift," and I mean, I have that same self consciousness about my own neck right now, but then I'm looking at her and I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even see that. And she's like, look at these bags under my eyes. I'm like, what are you
Well, now you
talking
do.
about? I don't see it.
But now you do because she pointed it out. I'm like, why do people point out the worst things about them?
But even then, sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like, you look fine. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, it's true. I usually have a little rubber band around my wrist, a little blue rubber band, and I don't have to wear it so much anymore because I've really caught myself where out of the gate you start talking about self-deprecating stuff and you snap it and change it. And we see this all the time. We go out to lunch and a girlfriend, I say, how are you? Oh, man, I mean, I'm just gaining so much weight and I just hate, and I'm like, whoa, hold up. I want to know the good things about you. If you were your own best friend and you were showing up to have lunch with yourself, what would you want you to say?
Yeah.
How would you support you? Right? If you have a friend going through a tough time and they're beating themselves up, you would probably look at them and say, you know what? I think you are absolutely beautiful. I love everything about you, and here's what I love about you. I love X, Y, and Z, right? And you would tell your friend that, and you'd give them a hug, and you'd say, quit beating yourself up. You are so fantastic, right? Yet we do this to ourselves, and we don't show up for ourselves and say the same thing to ourselves. So I would encourage everyone listening every single day, no, it does not mean you're conceited. No, it does not mean you're selfish. If you don't love yourself, and you don't love where you are in life right now, even if it's not where you thought you were going to be, right now is perfect. There's no perfection in life. The only perfect is right now.
Yeah.
You're where you're supposed to be right now with the challenges you have right now because your future self has put you in this position. So what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do? So what are you going to do with all these new things that you're doing, Betsy? Are you going to come out with more music? Are you going to do more comedy? Are you tell me where now that you're really aligning with your passion, where you're going to go, and then tell people how to follow you so they can follow you on this journey.
Yeah, so that's the thing is now I realize I have so many interests and I don't have to pick just one. I can do all of them. So, I have the International Pause Institute, which you can find at pause, Pause, like stop, pauseinstitute.com. So that's, going to be my menopause, andropause, living the best life after 40 practice. I'm going to continue to speak and be on stages. Anytime I can potentially get modeling or acting, I'll do that. I'm my bucket list things right now are eventually to do my own book. I've authored a book with other people, but I would like to do my own book. I'm starting a new internet TV show called She Said, She Said. Say that 10 times fast.
You might need to rethink that title. You're not going to be able to say it every single
I know.
time.
I just realized that's a harder than I thought. So, but I think the easiest thing to follow me is one last thing is more music, definitely more music. So I have Dr. Betsy Greenleaf Beats will be one, but if you just follow me, you'll find it. And then there's another secret band called Life Fire that's out there that I might be involved with. But I think the biggest thing is just follow me on social. I'm on every single social there is. Yeah. So it's either Dr. Betsy Greenleaf or Dr. Betsy Greenleaf _ or Dr. B Greenleaf. If you just look up Betsy and Green and Leaf, like one word. For some reason, people always get the leaf part. It's like leaf, like in the trees. It's, so you'll find me.
And you're fun to follow. So, I think the way I looked at social media when I went into it is I was like, well, I don't think it's healthy for us to be on social media because of all the negativity. So I'm going to make sure that every piece of content I put out is fun or positive or brings value to somebody's life so that if they get stuck on that scroll, they're smiling and laughing and enjoying it as opposed to feeling crappy about themselves, right?
I agree. I've had to unfollow the doom and gloom people, even though I think they're in my topic and I should see what they're doing. I couldn't because it just affects my mood. So no,
Yep, it's got to
unfollow.
go. Let it go.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, I have loved catching back up with you, Dr. Betsy, and
Yay.
I think this is a valuable lesson in really just running with what happens and finding that lining and shifting it towards making sure you're seeing the good things in life and not the bad things in life. So, thank you so much for being here today. It's really nice chatting with you.
Thank you, Dr. Tricia.